Special thanks to Louis Le Diamond for the story. Please check him out in the description below. Now on to the story. The Great Tribunal, 15 Galactic Standard Days. After the Battle of Earth, the trial of General Corthan. The Garthinian general gazed up to the several alien figures above him. He never imagined he'd be in this place. This large and dark chamber was used to punish war criminals and debrief leaders after military disasters. He was still attempting to figure out which one of those brought him here. Earth was a disaster in every way. Never had a general, especially one of his prestige, been beaten so badly by primitive natives of a planet. Undoubtedly, the tribunal would strip him of his rank, unless he could give them a very, very good reason as to how he lost. It would be even harder with the 42nd Galactic War still raging on around them. There is a concept, he started, one universal among life, an instinctual fear of those you are unfamiliar with. Most individuals can mitigate or get over this fear mostly, but it always sticks with them. This fear is what led to our gravest mistake. I was a general in the prime of my career, conqueror of worlds and destroyer of our enemies. I defeated the Zangshar on Okinia and dismantled the Chloristi Imperis single-handedly. I was the one who repelled the great scourge that was the Gahantri invasion from the Hadriana galaxy. I was the Arium galaxy's protector. Yet here I stand before you now, O great tribunal. To borrow a phrase from the very creatures that lead me here, oh how the mighty have fallen. It was supposed to be a glorious, unstoppable invasion, much like the many I had led before. The primitives that called Talion Sea their home were nothing but insects under my hove, to be slaughtered like the insignificant race they were. Earth, as they called it, was a strategic point in the galaxy. The Sagini and Calypsi had taken all the systems around it. Earth, the insignificant rock that it was the only way we were to push behind enemy lines. It would have brought an end to this conflict. Just 7 systems from the Calypsi capital. The last, unsuspecting bastion. We would slip in right between them. The primates had primitive weapons and armor. Their guns used lead and copper projectiles accelerated by explosives at above sonic speeds. Their armor was ceramic and metal held in place by tough fabrics and used to store additional ammunition and equipment. Ingenious for sure, but primitive. In hindsight, this cleverness should have been taken as a warning to their creativity. The creatures themselves had several natural advantages we were unaware of. They can rapidly cool their bodies off through a process called sweating, meaning they can out-endure even our lightest of infantry. They have a remarkable throwing ability, one that far surpasses any we've ever seen, and they exploited this to a terrifying degree with what they called grenades, which were explosive spheres they'd throw into our formations. They also had another advantage I failed to account for, one common on their planet, but unprecedented in the galaxy. This advantage, far more than any other, was what I believe gave them the edge. It's impossible for me to properly explain myself, however. Instead, I wish to show you. Ashland, Ohio, 2 years after the beginning of the Battle of Earth, the Battle of Ashland. 0500 hours. Justin ducked into the mud as artillery burned the field around him. For once, he was happy it was raining. The mud seemed to affect the aliens far more than him and his allies. He expected to be back home soon, but an alien invasion was not the welcome home party he expected. If the pushed past Ashland County, they'd have a clear shot to Columbus. Jenkins and Danovich had already been hit. He could only hope they were still alive. He picked his rifle back up and bolted through the field. Gunther and McMillan were just ahead. He knew Freer Field was lost as he made his way into the forest. He looked back and felt an intense feeling that he betrayed his family as he watched his little brothers, Old School, burn to the ground, but he pressed on. Miller, get down. Justin ducked into a ditch as soon as he heard McMillan's voice. A ball of plasma exploded above him. He could feel the heat burning into his inside. As soon as the heat dissipated, Justin got up and bolted further into the woods. While this forest was very small, it would provide enough cover for them to retreat. He hated falling back in his own home, but he knew he had no choice.
Weiter kriegst du circus algoritms, yet rowan.
By F.E. Ashland, Ohio. The Battle of Ashland, 700 hours. Justin peeked out the blinds in the window of the old classroom they were posted up in. He had fond memories in this class. The teacher here taught physics. He remembered him as a kind and goofy man. The kind of person you could trust with your worst life problems. He thought back to the words he once told him. You can visit any time. Justin could only hope he had survived and escaped the city. The high school, while not ideal, made a better defensive spot than most, and the second floor had a good enough view of the outside. When they had arrived, they had managed to link up with a few other squads. They informed him and his team that Jenkins and Danovich were dead. It was just the three of them now. Justin could see movement across the street, just behind some houses. "McMillan, I got contact, 3 platoons moving across the street from that purple house." "3? Yeah, they're moving into the parking lot heading this way." "Okay, Gunther." "Yes, sir," Gunther responded attentively. "Post up in the neighboring room." "Yes, sir." Justin could see other soldiers moving into position around the building. He cracked the window and pointed his gun out, waiting for the command. "Fire at will," McMillan relayed, as he posted up in the window on the opposite side of Justin and opened fire. The booming sound of 100 guns rang out into the parking lot, obliterating the small and exposed alien force outside. Before the smoke could clear, however, a much larger force appeared from behind the houses across the street and began to charge at the building. The school lit up with plasma and lead. Fiery balls punched the side of the building, chipping brick and mortar out of place to plummet to the ground. Justin picked his targets carefully as to not blow through his ammo, but there were more hostiles pouring in by the second. McMillan backed away from the window and began to speak up into his radio, calling for close air support. McMillan moved back to the window and continued to fire. Spit. The sound shook Justin from his focus. He looked to his right and saw McMillan falling. The world seemed to slow down. He ran to his fallen staff sergeant as plasma fire hit around him. "McMillan, come on, man, get the hell up!" Justin shouted at the dying soldier. "Don't fuck with me, get up!" Justin was starting to not understand the words he was saying as the world started getting drowned out around him. "Come on, come on, come on, come on. No, no, no. Don't you fucking die on me, you bastard!" Justin watched as the light slipped from his comrade's eyes, never to return. The Great Tribunal, 15 Galactic Standard Days, after the Battle of Earth, the trial of General Corthan. Did you see it, Tribunal? No? How about another example? Hesperia, California, 2 years after the beginning of the Battle of Earth, the Battle of Victor Valley, 2100 hours. Jose looked up at the overpass. He wasn't sure why. He couldn't see anything, but he heard it. The alien chatter was unmistakable. Halsey, Maria, and Jackson were just behind him, with Parker leading ahead. He couldn't help but pay extra attention to Maria. He had promised to protect his sister since they were little. Now, as they passed under Main Street, he couldn't help but feel she was in more danger than ever before. "Maria, ¿cómo estás?" Jose whispered back to his sister. "Todo es bien, hermano. Necesitamos enfocar." Maria replied with annoyance in her voice. "She's right too. Now's not the time." Parker whispered back to them. "Move east, up that hill. We'll ambush them." "Copy, sir." All of the teammates replied at roughly the same time. Jose moved up the sandy bank to the road, hiding just behind the barrier. His night vision goggles illuminated the world in green as he took aim. Parker and Maria took up right next to him, as the other two moved into position on the other side. Mere seconds passed before the aliens moved past them. As soon as they did, Parker, Maria, and Jose moved behind them, trapping them in an alley as the three humans took cover behind a wrecked car. "Open fire, wa!" Parker shouted, snapping the aliens' attention to the ambush behind them. The humans opened fire on the helpless alien squad. Jose could now see there were 9. 4 went down immediately as the other 5 took cover behind another wrecked car ahead. The two small forces exchanged fire for a few minutes before Halsey and Jackson moved up. Halsey was shot in the shoulder as he popped up to fire on the enemies. Jackson pulled him back and threw a grenade. An alien shout ripped through the air just before the grenade detonated the group of invaders. "Jackson, Lopez, move in to investigate. Jose, stay back." Jose watched as Jackson and Maria pined around the car and eased themselves, confirming that the aliens were dead. Jose and Parker moved to the car to see for themselves as Jackson hurried back to treat Halsey's wound. "Good work, Maria," Jose exclaimed as he hugged his sister, who just smiled back at him with pride. Jose looked down and counted 3 dead aliens. 3? Only 3 were here. Too late. Jose watched in horror as an alien appeared from behind a car further up and fired. The plasma bolt ripped into Maria, her proud smile replaced with shock and horror as she fell on top of him. Parker immediately opened fire, dropping the attacker in a single shot. Jose threw his helmet off. The camera caught him holding his sister's corpse as he broke down into tears. He sat broken for minutes before Parker pulled him away as more aliens descended onto them. The grief was quickly demolished in exchange for unbridled and primal rage. Jose threw Parker off of him and faced the platoon of the bastards that killed his sister. He let his rage out in lead and copper and fire as his bullets ripped into alien flesh and armor. He vaulted cars and ran towards the attackers. He jumped an ambulance as he drew his knife and dived onto one of the aliens, tearing its helmet off and ripping into its flesh with the blade. Jose was hit in the arm and leg several times but didn't care. He drew his handgun and emptied an entire magazine into a nearby soldier, then grabbed his rifle and fired into the platoon. He threw 3 grenades at them, blowing one of the attackers into chunks of flesh and bone and metal. He looked around at the smoldering wreckage, seeing another alien flee. He unloaded 2 magazines into the poor bastard, dropping it with the first shot. Parker approached cautiously and placed his hand gently on Jose's shoulder as he admired the rifleman's work. The Great Tribunal, 15 galactic standard days after the Battle of Earth, the trial of General Corthan. Corthan stared at the looming figures above him, who stared at him with unfeeling perceptors. I hope this demonstrates how dangerous these creatures are. All across the globe, reports flooded in of civilians wiping out entire brigades single-handedly just to defend a child. The Talians possess an instinctive urge to protect each other, not just themselves. We were entirely unprepared for such a force. Everyone we killed made the rest stronger. Every time we killed their leaders, they fought even harder in that leader's name. A martyr, they call them. You see, Tribunal Talians don't actually die. They transform into a symbol the rest will use to keep fighting. A symbol that evokes hope and determination in those around the killed human. Even with a severe technological disadvantage, that hope and determination will still prevail. Talians, or humans as they call themselves, cannot die, and they cannot be broken. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and wants to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that comments I enjoyed the story, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.